Welcome to Sweetie Pie star Tim Norman has been convicted. Welcome back to the Kempire Daily YouTube channel, your number one source for pop culture news and music, entertainment, reality TV, and so much more. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. So we haven't really been covering the day-to-day when it comes to Welcome to Sweetie Pie's former star, Tim Norman. But we have given you some coverage. But shout out to my girls, Chronicle Speaks and Layla Lynn. They've been covering some of the trial that's been going on. Well, now, after 17 hours of deliberation, the jury has found Tim Norman guilty. So this is coming from St. Louis Dispatch. They report that Tim Norman was convicted on all charges after the jury deliberated for about 17 hours. He faced 2 federal murder for hire counts and 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire and mail fraud. Norman orchestrated the 2016 murder of his 21-year-old nephew, Andre Montgomery, who you all also know from Welcome to Sweetie Pies. Then he attempted to cash out a $450,000 fraudulent life insurance policy he took out on Montgomery about 18 months before the death. Norman and his nephew starred, of course, in Welcome to Sweetie Pie's, a long-running own reality show about the popular soul food business Robbie Montgomery, Norman's mother and Andre's grandmother, founded in St. Louis area. The verdict Friday concludes a case that captured national attention for years. Assistant United States Attorney Angie Dennis made the case in closing argument for the prosecution that Norman initiated the murder plot in hopes of a payout. Not only did he know, he was the architect of this plan. Dennis said, "This plan doesn't exist but for Tim Norman's greed." Norman's defense attorney, Michael Leonard, responded in his closing arguments that the murder plot described by prosecutors was a, quote, made-up theory. The picture from everyone in this case was that he was a man of character, according to Tim Norman's attorney. Prosecutors argued the day of the shooting, Norman paid $10,000 to an exotic dancer, Terica Ellis, to track his nephew's location. They accused Norman of then using a friend to pay $5,000 to the shooter, Travell Anthony Hill, after he killed Montgomery. Both Ellis and Hill testified for the prosecution. The defendant saw this opportunity to cash in, and he tried, according to the prosecutor. He had his own nephew executed. Norman made the rare decision for a criminal defendant to take the stand in his own defense in the final day of the testimony on Tuesday. And I'm not surprised by this because, for the love of Jennifer Williams from Basketball Wives, she dated this man and talked openly about his weird behavior. He told the jury he asked Hill and Ellis to find and confront his nephew about a recent burglary at his mother's home, Robbie Montgomery, but said he never paid them or asked them to hurt his nephew. Norman testified that about 18 months before the killing, he brought Montgomery to St. Louis, paid his rent, and enrolled him in music school. He said he then cut him off financially after Andre Montgomery stopped going to work and school. The defense called former Sweetie Pie's employees and other character witnesses who said Norman and his nephew were close. Leonard questioned the credibility of the testimony from Norman's alleged co-conspirators and argued Terica Ellis, felt compelled to testify to get a shorter sentence. In making life's most important decisions, would you make that based upon a stripper who said she looked in your face and lied to you, according to Tim Norman's attorney? What? Not us shaming this woman for being a stripper. Okay. He also emphasized that the shooter, Hill, prosecutors called Norman's hired gun, said nobody else should be responsible for my actions but me. I looked up to Tim as a mentor. Hill testified that he bought a gun and killed Andre Montgomery after he was told by a mutual acquaintance that Norman would pay to have his nephew killed. Hill says he was paid $5,000 after the killing by another man, Daryl Howard, who testified he made the payment at Norman's direction. Leonard emphasized that Hill testified he was a heavy drug user at the time and, quote, hopped up on drugs that day. In her rebuttal, Prosecutor Dennis told jurors not to trust Norman's testimony. The defendant sat up there for 4 hours and spun tales because that's what he does, according to Dennis. There's about 45 reasons why you can't trust a word this man says. Dennis emphasized that all the testimony from alleged co-conspirators was backed up in trial by texts, call records, and location data. He scripted a show to portray an image of wealth and success that wasn't real. She said Norman in trial created, quote, an image being a mentor and a father figure to all these people, but it's fiction. So in regards to Robbie Montgomery, you know, their mom, sidebar, she's suing a YouTuber for someone that was calling in on a YouTuber's channel and making allegations about her and possible involvement. Look, Mr. Montgomery is not on trial here, but the burglary that came up in this trial, according to Fox 2 Now, they say Robert Montgomery's home was burglarized back in June of 2015. More than $200,000 in cash and other valuables were stolen from the residence. Norman pointed the finger at Andre months before the death, though testimony given in court reiterates he wanted to get back at Andre after the burglary. FBI agents did not confirm who committed the burglary. However, county authorities had cleared Andre, the late Andre Montgomery, of wrongdoing in the burglary. So in regards to the other people involved in this murder for hire situation, Hill was indicted back in November of 2020 on 1 count of murder for hire and 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder for hire. He pleaded guilty in June of 2022. He will be sentenced, though, on September 20th. Terica Ellis, an exotic dancer living in Memphis, Tennessee, was accused of setting Andre up and tipping off Norman and others about Andre's location prior to the murder. She pleaded guilty in July of 2022 to 1 count of murder for hire conspiracy. Yagnum, Tim Norman's insurance agent, was also involved in this situation because, as you know, there was an insurance policy involved here, was indicted in August of 2020 on 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire and mail fraud. He pleaded guilty back in July of 2022. Both Ellis and Yagnum will be sentenced on October 26th. Look, we've been hearing about this story for a very long time. A lot of us did not we couldn't even fathom how someone could do this to a family member or the people that we have watched on this reality show. I am not surprised at this outcome. I kind of figured that this is what was going to happen, especially with all the information that was coming out and everyone that was testifying against Tim Norman. Once we find out more details on how much time he's going to serve and when he's going to be sentenced, we will let you guys know. Again, as always, I want to hear your thoughts and reactions, especially those of you that have been following this case since it began. Let's continue that conversation below. As always, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss out on breaking news when we go live or when we upload. Thanks for watching.